Everybody ready to go? All right, cool. So I'm going to go ahead and get started then. So first of all, thank you all so much for coming to Sustainable Claremont's Dialogue series. I'm Stuart Wood. I'm the executive director here. And we have a really exciting presentation tonight and a really important presentation tonight with our friends from Tri-City. So before we get started, a couple really brief, really quick introductions. The first one is that we are in the middle almost of our year-end giving campaign. These dialogues and so much of what we do at Sustainable Claremont is really only made possible because of the people in our network who donate and help us keep these going. So my colleague Han is going to go ahead and drop a link into the chat box. If you're willing and able, we would love your support. Also, we are having just a ton of events coming up. We have two dialogues today, or excuse me, two dialogues this week, a dialogue next week, and then we're going to start doing one or two tree planting events per month. Oh, I'm going to mute somebody here.
Not recently, once.
Sorry, one second.
Oh, I paid yesterday.
Let me reclaim my host so I can mute all. There we go. Okay. So sorry about that. So we just have a ton of events coming up here. And so the best way to keep track of all those events and make sure that you have the link and the access to those and know when they're going on is to sign up for our newsletter. We really try not to bombard people with emails too much, one or two a month max, except for during the year-end campaign. So again, my colleague Han is going to go ahead and drop the newsletter link. Please sign up for that. And so you could keep on top of all the great programs that we have coming up here. On Monday, as I mentioned earlier, we are going to have our dialogue on the Regional Recycled Water Program, which is going to be a new source of water for the Southland. And we're going to have a really interesting speaker come talk to us about all the details of that and how we can expect that to affect our water resources here, especially on these really dry, drought-stricken years. So please join us for that next Monday. We're really looking forward to that. During the presentation tonight, if you have any questions for our speakers, please feel free to drop those into the chat box, and they can either answer those as they're giving their presentation, if that seems like an appropriate time, or my colleague Han and I will collect those questions and we'll ask them at the end. You can also raise your hand at the end of the presentation and we can unclick you so that you can ask directly to any of our speakers. Okay, so let's turn it to why we're here tonight, our three speakers from Tri-City. Let me introduce them real quick and I'll throw them the mic. So our first speaker is Andrea Espinoza, who's the mental health specialist for Tri-City's Therapeutic Community Garden. We also have Sarah Rodriguez, clinical therapist for Tri-City's Therapeutic Community Garden, if I could get all that. And then Kira, who's the community garden farmer. So all of them are sort of the point people at the community garden and this nexus of nature and gardening and mental health. And so we're so excited to hear from you. And Andrea, I'm going to go ahead and throw it your way, and I'm going to make you host here.
Thank you, Stuart. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Give me just a quick second. There we go. All right, Sarah, and I'll throw it over to you.
Okay, thank you for those intros, Stuart. I'll just add that we are managed by Dr. Nicole Lobato. We are known at Tri-City as a small but mighty department. Everyone that you just met through the intros and Dr. Nicole Lobato, we're the whole team. That's it. So thank you so much for coming today and giving us your ears and your attention for a little bit this evening. And to get started, so the whole reason we're here is you folks do such a vast array of topics, of subject matters, of focuses in these meetings. And really our focus today is on therapeutic horticulture and really why as human beings, our connection to green space, to nature, to the garden, to the outdoors is so important for our mental health, our physical health, and our overall wellness. So what is therapeutic horticulture? First of all, it's what we practice every day in our groups, what we practice every day in the garden and with our participants. And essentially, it is the process through which participants enhance their well-being through active or passive involvement in plant and plant-related activities. A good example of plant-related activities is that we haven't really been able to be in the garden that much over the past year and a half plus with participants because of COVID. So we found alternate ways, and we'll get into that a little bit later, of how we can serve the community through a therapeutic horticulture lens while staying safe and while people still have that need when it comes to, for some of us, general knowledge. We know that we need nature, right? It's food, it's shelter, it's security, it's clothing, but it's also really, really good for us as far as stress management, lowering blood pressure, even lowering blood glucose levels after we go for a walk in the woods compared to when you just go for a walk in a concrete jungle, say. Thank you, Andrea. So before we move on, we did want to teach you a little bit about some of the modalities we may use in the therapeutic community garden. As mentioned before, therapeutic horticulture is really the umbrella to everything we do, relating nature, the garden, plants, to enhancing mental health and wellness and stress management. But under that umbrella are a couple specific modalities included, but not limited to, mindfulness. Let's start with mindfulness. So really, mindfulness has 3 pillars. And what you're doing when you're practicing mindfulness meditation is you're increasing your awareness to the present moment non-judgmentally. Those 3 aspects are the really important parts of mindfulness. And what you're essentially doing through mindfulness is noticing as opposed to judging. Noticing as opposed to this is good or bad, or I like this or I don't like this. That's removing that non-judgmental, that judgmental lens from it, getting rid of that lens. And what we end up learning through mindfulness and through some other techniques is if mindfulness is present focused, there's a lot of power there, because in very general terms, we may see depression as something that has arisen because of bad things that have happened in the past, right? We may look at anxiety as worry and discomfort about the future, which is the unknown. The past is gone, although it's still a part of our foundation and still with us, and the future is unknown, although we know it will come. So really, when it comes to mindfulness, what power and ability to enhance a moment, even if it be neutral, right? The interesting thing about neutrality is it dominates our life. We tend to remember the best times and the worst times in our lives. But the neutral can really represent a moment of safety and security and peace. So mindfulness enhances a moment that we otherwise might just be walking past. It really highlights and creates, again, that enhanced awareness in that moment. It gives attention to the otherwise overlooked. And then, of course, the 5 senses. It goes without saying, right? We're talking about the garden. We're talking about being outdoors and nature. The garden and the outdoors is such a wonderful vessel for tapping into the 5 senses. And when you really focus on what you're seeing in the moment, or what you're tasting or smelling, right? And I'm not talking about like, I picture a pelican in my head, right? Just swallowing that fish whole and it goes down its throat and it's gone, right? That pelican didn't eat mindfully, right? The pelican didn't maybe taste the fish in a sense. When we slow down using mindfulness and highlighting the 5 senses, again, these moments become so much more special and enhanced. And they were just otherwise just moments. We just eat to eat, right? We just walk to get from point A to point B, but we're not really experiencing those moments. So again, nature creates such a beautiful template for exploring the 5 senses and just having those moments be enhanced. There's also a gratitude exercise that can be done when it comes to the 5 senses, right? We all know that there's some people that might not be fully ambulatory. You know, maybe we're in a wheelchair, maybe we're using a cane, maybe we're colorblind, maybe we don't see at all, maybe we're hearing impaired, etc. When you're able to think about the 5 senses as a gratitude moment, be thankful that just in this moment, you have the ability to sit in this chair, watch the screen, learn something new, hear new information, and socialize with others, right? The five senses are something to be thankful for and grateful for, way past November, right? And then we have motivational interviewing. So with motivational interviewing, this technique we pretty much use every day. This technique is going to use invitational language. As you see on the screen, we see the check mark with invite. And what we're focusing on here is allowing the participants in our groups, allowing the individuals who come to work in the garden or come to experience a harvest pickup, right? Maybe they're grabbing some seeds. Maybe they have a ton of experience and live on an acre, and maybe they've never planted or propagated a succulent in their life, right? We use that invitational language so that individuals are able to kind of create their own plan and set their own goals for group. Maybe someone's not ready to get their hands dirty. Maybe someone isn't ready to close their eyes and practice a mindfulness meditation. So you're going to hear us in our group say something like, we invite you to, or if you're comfortable with, join us in A, B, and C. And this really gives the individual a lot of autonomy and power in their own decision making, because we are asking them to try something that might enhance their mood, stabilize a symptom they might be experiencing. Maybe someone's sad one day, maybe they're anxious, right? And physically too. We're saying, hey, do you want to try planting your own stuff? Do you want to get out here in the garden? It's always invitational. And when you use motivational interviewing, eventually people are able to open up, create their own plan, and do things when they're ready. All right, and here is our weekly schedule. So I keep referring back to how we use therapeutic horticulture and the few modalities you just learned about. These are the groups we use these techniques in. All of our groups are free. We are set up as a prevention and early intervention program for the communities of Pomona, Claremont, and Laverne. And even if you're just affiliated with those three cities, maybe you work there, maybe you go to school there, maybe you're part of an organization or volunteer there, our services are free and set up for you. So we have our 55 plus group, we have our Spanish speaking family group and our Spanish speaking adult group. We have our mindfulness through virtual gardening, which is Wednesdays at 11. We have our youth group, which is aimed to 18 to 25. We have our English speaking family group, and we have our Reconnect to the garden group every Friday at 1. So depending on your age, depending on your situation, and if you want to come alone, or maybe you want to bring your kids, you may have a different date that you're looking at as far as joining the garden. And I do want to share as well at this time that we have piloted in-person groups back in the garden. Things are still very unknown. The in-person group was in high demand and it filled up really quickly. But if you're interested in that, because it's a huge draw right now, get in touch with us. We'll let you know, in the meantime, the best way to stay connected is to join a virtual group. If that's not for you, call us. Give us a call periodically to see when those next in-person groups are rolling out, and we'll give you that information as it comes out. And on that note, I will hand it over to Andrea or Kira. Kira.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Sarah. Hi, everybody. It's kind of weird doing a garden tour virtually. I know we're kind of getting used to it. But yeah, it just doesn't have the same impact. So I tried to keep it chock full of pictures for you guys. So today, I really want to talk about, well, what Sarah was talking about actually set up perfectly for how we actually garden at Tri-city Community Garden. Everything that she's spoken about mindfulness, it all really bleeds into our practice. So in the Therapeutic Community Garden, we garden with intention. We want to teach skills, and we want to teach how to grow resilience that reaches beyond the garden itself. Andrea, please. We nurture, we don't destroy. So we try to teach alternative ways of looking at nature. You know how Sarah said mindfulness is really about stopping, living in the moment, maybe reframing how you think about things or how you might normally think about things. And doing that in the garden adds this amazing dimension. On the screen right now, we have a carrot flower. So inevitably in Southern California, the heat causes our carrots to get woody and bitter as we rev into late spring, early summer. You don't have to start pulling them out. Reframe this as a wonderful moment. Allow it to bolt. It adds a beneficial dimension to the garden. The bloom is a perfect pollinator attractor. It's a compound flower. And so all of those little ones are ideal. It's a pollinator smorgasbord. And what we have right here is actually a native California wasp. And as an adult, it's a pollinator, but its larva is actually this amazing caterpillar hunter. Well, actually, it's a little more gruesome than that, but they eat caterpillars when they're larvae. So let's leave it at that. And so you can look at a carrot seed, a carrot root, maybe a carrot flower, and you can see how it goes from food to pollination to pest prevention. It's still a carrot, but it's so many other things as well. Next, please, Andrea. Thank you. And we also like to practice preventative passive pest protection and disease prevention by employing best practices and mindfulness. So instead of spraying immediately when we see something going on, we try to prevent it by having physical barriers or making sure that we're doing really good hygiene in the garden. Next, Andrea, please. And in our garden at the Therapeutic Community Garden, we are not just growing plants. We're trying to take life lessons from nature. We're making these connections. We're slowing down, we're observing, and we're getting in sync with nature and what's happening around us. Andrea, please. And we're growing a healthy ecosystem. This was actually March of last year. Andrea, please. And of course, we are growing soil. We're growing living soil and encouraging soil life through moisture, through compost, through having cover crops and living mulches, and just adding that layer of mulch onto the ground. It's a passive way of feeding your soil biology, which only makes your plants happier in the end. Andrea, please. Thank you. We are also growing biodiversity, and that's so important in a healthy ecosystem. But you know what? It doesn't only apply to what we're growing in the garden, but it also applies to who uses the garden other than us. So of course, our community, we're growing biodiversity in our communities, but we're also growing biodiversity in the insects and the animals that visit the garden. We thoughtfully make decisions and we foster systems that benefit all users. And that's really where reframing things is key, right? A garden isn't just a single thing. It's not static, it's ever changing, it's many things. And we're constantly reminding ourselves as well as the participants in the community. Okay. Thank you, Andrea. One of the things that we do is we have a perennial herb bed, which is really awesome because it provides harvest all year round for the community, but it also supports passive pest control. Birds, oh, we get flocks of bush tits going through the garden, picking off little bugs. They come and they have a little bath, they have a little water. Having this there for them It helps us. They don't go after irrigation as well, but it also helps us by encouraging them to do what they would do naturally. And it also is beneficial. It actually jives with what we want them to do in the garden. Okay, Andrea, please. Talking about the reframing, right here we have flowering arugula and mustard, and it provides this amazing habitat for pollinators. And you can see a European honeybee on that. Next, please. But it also provides perfect habitat for ladybug love. As soon as the heat hits, the aphids attack the brassicas, the mustards, they're covered, but it's a perfect habitat for ladybugs in all stages of growth. On the left, you can actually see the alligators. And then on the right, alligator, I'm sorry, that's the larva, the young ladybug larva. And on the right is an adult ladybug. And both of them consume amazing amounts of aphids. There's a reason why it's called alligator, not just because it's a funky looking little thing, but it has a voracious appetite. And these plants also serve as trap plants. Brassicas, heat-stressed brassicas are the aphid's favorite thing. It means that they're going to leave our other crops alone. So this one little patch of flowering arugula and mustards, it serves as a wonderful in-garden lesson, right? On observation and ways of altering your perspective. And that kind of helps you cope with the ups and downs, not only in nature, in your garden, but in life too. Okay. Next, please, Andrea. And then most important of all, we are growing a healthy community. We are growing connections between people and the world surrounding them. And for me, as a gardener and an educator, those are the most important things. It's great to get food. It's great to get amazing harvest, and we do. We get really amazing harvests to share. But being able to share skills and tools that will help make people's lives better, that's really what's important for me. Thank you, Andrea.
Awesome. Thank you, Kira. So as both Sarah and Kira mentioned, we do grow a lot of stuff in the garden, and all of the things that we grow in the garden goes back to all of the participants that we have in our groups. So it's a beautiful thing. Not only are participants able to come into the Therapeutic Community Garden to gain some coping techniques, to relax, to feel a little bit better, but they're also able to leave with beautiful harvest that is grown there at the garden. We have very healthy the garden, and in the pictures that you see in front of you, you'll see on the right side, we had some pomegranates, some persimmon trees. We've grown carrots, lots of herbs, cucumbers, squash, and not only are our participants able to receive harvest, but we also supply them with seeds when we have them available. In addition, we've also been able to supply seedlings. We encourage them to take that home and practice that at home. It doesn't have to end after they walk out the garden. They can take that home and really practice the skills that we're teaching them in their own space as well. Additionally, you see some more harvest that we've given out. It's been a beautiful year, and although we haven't been out in the garden, participants have still been able to receive a lot of the stuff that are growing out there. The process of not only just planting the seed and seeing it grow, but also being able to enjoy the fruits of their work has really been an experience for a lot of our participants. In addition, we incorporate some recipes in our harvest giveaways. We really want our participants to experience things that maybe they wouldn't have if they weren't part of this garden. So in the past, we've been able to provide some salsa kits, some fruit recipes, and we provide all that harvest to them so they can try that out at home. On the left, you'll see an edible flower arrangement or an edible arrangement. We have some nasturtiums, some Swiss chard, some parsley, and it was actually given out to a community member. So again, everything that we grow out there goes back to our participants that are enrolled in our groups. All right. And I know Sarah talked a little bit about mindfulness, and I wanted to give you guys a glimpse of a little bit of what we do in our groups. I would like to invite you guys to practice this mindfulness through site activity. The only requirement is your ability to be present with us today. And our goal is really to take your mind from a place of thinking and doing to just noticing. So I invite you guys to get into a comfortable position if you can. Relax your body as best as you can. I get pretty tense around my neck, so I like to roll my shoulders a little bit, my neck too. So if you can, and if it feels comfortable to you, I invite you guys to do that. Also, if it feels comfortable to you, if you can close your eyes for this experience, for this activity. Again, if it feels comfortable. In this moment, I would like you guys to take a deep breath. And as you exhale, if you can open your eyes and notice everything that surrounds you. Avoid labeling and categorizing what you see. So instead of saying frame or book, try to just notice the colors and the patterns, the shapes and the textures. Be observant, but not critical. Maybe you see a little dust. Don't think about that. Look beside that. Be aware, but don't fixate. Again, if you become distracted, pull your mind away from those thoughts and just notice another color or another shape. And I'm going to give you guys a couple extra seconds to just look around. Notice those colors. Notice those textures around you. And when you're ready, and if you feel comfortable, we would love to hear your experience.
I think for some of you, you may be doing this activity in a room that you've sat in 1,000 times, but as Andrea was kind of inviting you and directing you through the activity, to concentrate on color, right? Instead of labeling. Maybe you concentrated on where movement was, or where the light fell, where the darkness was, what textures were there. Maybe you just noticed that you gravitate towards one or two colors that are dominating your space. But yeah, if anybody would like to share, what did you notice? Or you may share, was it pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? This was a mindfulness meditation using sight. What was your experience?
I saw somebody was trying to raise your hand. Yeah, I see you waving. I don't know if anybody else can see you waving, just the way the screen's set up.
Yes, I apologize. I couldn't see anyone's face.
Okay, so you might need to unmute him.
My apologies. I am going, oh, there you go. Perfect.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, hi, my name is Evangelos Valianatos. I'm a writer and I live here in Clermont. And of course, I love agriculture and farming and so on. So my question to you is, do you go to the farmer's market and do you sell what you have in your garden?
We actually don't go to the farmer's market. We have a lot of community. So first and foremost, all of the produce that we end up growing, whether it's herbs, fruit, veggies, that's all going to go to our participants who are involved with our therapeutic community groups. After that, we partner with other departments within Tri-City Mental Health. It might be a youth group. It might be the holiday party that they're having next week, for example. After that, we might donate to community partners that we have. So we do have several community partners that are seeking of the abundance, when we do have an abundance donations from us, we are able to touch base with people and make those arrangements when we have surplus. I will say, because of our size, we don't have surplus super frequently throughout the year, but when the apples are ready, we have, apples for donation. One year we had a ton of pomegranates. So if you are interested in connecting with us after the meeting, feel free to put your information in the chat and we'll make sure to reach out to you about potential future arrangements. But definitely our participants get everything and we don't let anything go to waste.
May I mention something just really quick? We're actually a public agency. And so our program is not for profit. So we don't sell anything. We donate or we give out to the community.
Good for you. Do you go to elementary schools to try to teach the children something about the natural world so they can actually sense and see and taste your tomatoes or whatever you have in your garden?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to let
Yes.
Andrea speak to that.
We have definitely done that in the past. Again, I think COVID, for multiple reasons, but going back to your question, that has put a little bit of a pause on those connections that we've had with elementary schools and their gardens. We're certainly always looking at making new connections and providing this experiential technique with some information on why this is so good for you, and ultimately teach, hey, if nature's so good for us, if it's really benefiting us, we're more likely to be good to nature, and then switch our brains to a sustainability mode and giving back to our community mode and being environmentally conscious. But absolutely, we love partnering with the schools.
Well, this is, I see your role not just in the therapeutic side that you're talking about, but in the educational side.
Yes.
I mean, children are growing up and they don't know where the milk comes from or the fruit
Very
comes
true.
from. So this is, if I don't know where you are or what you have been doing, but that's what I would stress that you really need to do is to get out in Clermont schools and in other communities and get the children to see what you're doing. I mean, to see the garden, spend some time. That would be what you call sustainable Clermont. That would make Clermont sustainable, pretty much.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely ongoing work. And one of our goals is to really make the 0 to 25 population a target demographic that we work with. It can be difficult to make those connections. Everyone's so busy, but absolutely, we love partnering with the elementary schools when they're open to having us come in, or even these days, if they want to do something virtually. It's a wonderful connection to have to the children in the community.
So where are you located?
Yes, we will actually hook back around to a slide with our address and contact information,
Okay.
But we are in Pomona off of Gary Avenue at Tri-City Mental Health. We are at the 2008 location, which is our adult clinic, because we also have a wellness center and a children's clinic. We are connected to the adult clinic 2008 in Pomona, and we'll have our contact information for you shortly as well.
I teach at Cal Poly Pomona, and this semester I had graduate students, and one of them focused on what is happening in Pomona. In Pomona, that is the pollution. The way he described it, Pomona is the 4th worst city in the country in terms of pollution, air pollution, because of the trucks coming and going between sites that they have all this stuff that the Amazon sells to you and me.
I just read an article about that.
I really was astonished. I mean, I knew I have been in Clermont for 12 years, and occasionally I go through Pomona, but I never knew the amount and the toxicity of that city. It's horrible.
And what's unfortunate is when you break down all the cities in the county, and I just learned about this recently, the #1 city in Los Angeles County, when it comes to green space ratio to just concrete jungle ratio, they're marked at a 58%. I forget what city this is, but 58% of this one city in Los Angeles County is green space, tree canopies, parks, etc. The average city in LA County has 8% green
8%.
space coverage, and Pomona only has under 2%. So there's a lot of initiatives to increase green space, right? Not just for pollution, but again, for mental health. Kids that grow up in green spaces get better grades, and crime is reduced. So there's so many layers to why this subject matter is important.
I agree.
Yeah, I totally hear you.
What you're doing, and I urge you to keep doing what you have been doing.
Thank you. No, we appreciate it. Yeah, these kind of dialogues can go on for days. It's so interesting, and it's weird because we put a bunch of labels on things that we kind of already do and know, and the research is just starting to come out there, but it's about time. You know, it's exciting to have all this not just correlational data, but causal data, right? We can't say, oh, we think this is good for us. It is so good for us. And yeah, reaching the kids is a huge part of making this an intergenerational process, right? Not just stopping the influence here. So yeah, I mean, wonderful comments, and thank you for that. And I did see in the chat too, regarding the mindfulness activity, Carrie Wood said it was nice and relaxing. I noticed my nosy dog trying to get my attention. Of course. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you on that one. And then I see Diana mentioned, I have a fairly large garden, plus far too many oranges, limes, lemons, and other fruits, herbs, and vegetables. That product are more than I can consume. Is there a way to get these to help that need the excess? So what I'll do, Diana, is if you don't mind, you can private chat me an email or a contact number, and we'll get back to you on that too. Because again, because we're technically government funded and we are county, donations can get a little bit sticky for us, but I'd absolutely want to do some follow-up with that because there's a need in the community and you have a surplus. So I think it's at least right to point you in the right direction if we couldn't personally take on your donation. We work with dozens of organizations that could take on your donation. So yes, and I just got that. Thank you. I'm writing that down right now. Yep, exactly.
And I think Kira had put in some other resources in the
Yes.
chat as well.
And Uncommon Good is actually in Claremont. They're located at the top of Indian Hill, and you can do direct donations to them.
Yeah, they're right next to the Sustainable Claremont office, and they're amazing. They do amazing work. They're right next to the Methodist Church and to the gardens. All right, Andrea, you want to pick it back up? Oh, you're
yes,
okay.
I might. You know, it's actually kind of challenging trying to manage the slideshow and then talking. And I do this all day, every day, and it still gets challenging. So forgive me for those technological hiccups. I definitely wanted to provide you guys with our contact information. I think we're going to have some time for some questions as well, but I wanted to give you our phone number. If any of you are interested in connecting with us and asking us some questions about the Therapeutic Community Garden, or if you're interested in enrolling in any of our groups, we are here for you. We are here to support. Give us a call. You can ask for either Sarah or Andrea or Kira if she's available. But yeah, I mean, you can call us at we work 8 to 5, so you can call 8:30 to 5. So you can call us between that time, and we'll try and reach back out to you. But yeah, we're here for the community. As Sarah mentioned, we're a public agency. Our program is funded through Prevention and Early Intervention, which is funded through the Millionaire's Tax. So that's how we get our funding. Just to clarify there, because I know there was some questions, and that's why it gets a little sticky with donations and other things like that. I think that's all I have on our PowerPoint. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see everybody's face, and we can answer some questions if you guys have those.
I'd like to start with a quick question just to get us going. I think it was mentioned by each of you, and especially Kira earlier in the presentation, just about how, you know, when quarantine hit and COVID first hit, and, you know, everyone was very secluded, obviously, like by definition, and staying at home. And one of like the big things that happened was everybody became super interested in gardening at home, right? And so like there's sort of that like, just the proof is in the pudding, that there's some mental connection that we all have to just working with our hands and with the soil and with, growing food for ourselves. And in fact, Sustainable Claremont, we started a program to respond to that, where we go out and build raised bed gardens for folks in the community who want to put them in. And I see what you guys are doing on site and sort of what we are doing for people as well. And I wonder what you have in terms of suggestions for people who want to get involved, but they might not be ready to go on site at Tri-City, or for a raised, a full-on raised bed, which could be a lot of work for somebody. If there's like entry points that you see, sort of like easy on-ramps for starting to a food garden or a pollinator garden, or just to be outside, and thinking about that connection that we all have. If anyone could speak to that, I think that'd be great.
Kira, did you want to take this one on? I was thinking Reconnect.
Yes. Thank you. So actually, it's funny that you're talking about since the pandemic, because I have been only the Tri-City community farmer during the pandemic. I have actually not had most of the experiences that my coworkers have had with the community. And so I've like come up with all these different challenges, but it's that reframing things, being creative. And so a lot of the people, well, actually not a lot, we get about half and half. People are not quite ready to make that full commitment, are not in that place in their lives where they want to have a huge garden. And so we offer succulents. And we're really big on trying to make it as easy as possible for people. And so with all of our seed kits that we give out, with all of the seedlings, there are how-to handouts as well. So it's really important to just take those baby steps. Grow a succulent, see how that does. We encourage people to also grow in containers. Easy plants that have multiple dimensions to them, like nasturtiums, which have an edible flower, but you can also eat the leaves. You get all these amazing pollinators and hummingbirds that come and visit it. And it's a really easy plant to grow. So we have all these different levels of things that we're trying to achieve and find a point of connection for all of our participants, no matter where they're coming from.
Can I add a little bit to that, Kira?
Please.
I just wanted to add, we really meet our participants where they're at. Some share that they don't have a lot of space where they're growing. And like Kira mentioned, we'll provide those containers. Depending on their growing situations is the seeds that we provide to them. In our kits, we also provide soil. Maybe some don't have the soil. Maybe some don't have the fertilizer. We're able to provide that to them as well. So we do have, we try to connect everybody with what they need. We call everybody and ask them, where they're at and how we can support them. In addition, I know you asked on, if maybe folks are not ready to come in the garden, we do have a virtual group that we offer. It's our Friday group at 1 p.m. So that one is kind of bringing everybody kind of back to basics and also really teaching them if they're wanting to start maybe growing their own garlic. I know Kira had a lesson about that where she talked about growing their garlic or propagating mint, right? Little simple techniques that they can implement at home. Again, they don't have to come in the garden, but they can still have that experience at home. And we can supply some of those, some of the things that they might need as well. Sorry, Kira, I just wanted to add that.
Well,
No, thank you very much.
May I ask another question? In the context of what you just said, it seems to me every Sunday you should have a table at the farmer's market and do nothing else but, talk about the seeds that you are giving people and the advice. And people, there are hundreds of people going back and forth. They would see it has some beautiful flower or something, so they can actually see them. They will come and talk to you. And that way you spread the word, it seems to me. That would be.
You know what? That is a genius idea. It's so genius, we have done it in the past. And we have done a lot of in-person things. It's just, we are a public agency and we have OSHA, like we are healthcare providers. So there are a lot of restraints on what we can do right now. But as soon as we are able to get out there, you better believe it. We are going to be forcing people to enjoy the produce that we offer.
Of course, that's the key.
Yeah, and we've done Pomona Farmers Market because it's a much needed community, right? Like you said. So we want to continue to do these things. Just right now, as employees of a public agency, we have to be mindful again, right, of following protocol.
Is the mayor
love
of
that,
Pomona,
though.
is the mayor of Pomona supporting what you're doing?
We feel very I want to say we feel very supported by all three cities.
Wow.
We definitely attend, and that would be Laverne, Claremont, and Pomona. We attend the city hall meetings. Again, we're connected to some of the schools because the flip side of this coin is the food justice movement, right? It shouldn't be an arm and a leg to go to Trader Joe's or Sprouts to pay all that money for fresh, organic, natural food. The food that has funky shapes and looks kind of weird is the one that didn't get growth hormones and pesticides poured all over them. So yeah, absolutely. I really feel when I hear you comment on that is just continuing with the food justice movement too, and part of what we were doing, we thought, okay, well, how can we get our food to more people? Just on the side of there's homelessness, there's people who lack, just basic needs. What do we do? And we started a food justice program. That way individuals in the community, we needed a little effort on their parts, right? We needed to connect and maybe get a phone number and figure out how we were gonna connect. But we just said, you know what, forget it. They don't have to be involved in a group. Let's just give people food when they need the food. And again, like Kira said, COVID really slowed that down. But the food justice movement happens to be something I'm very passionate about as well. And yeah, I can't wait till we're out there again. This is a connection, but everyone is surrounded by a rectangle and that feels a little unnatural, but it's going to be wonderful to connect once we're given the green light to be out there again, actually be face to face with the community and hand someone a pomegranate, hand someone a bag of apples. We miss it.
Yeah, Sarah and Andrea, we've started the discussion about how, this is Tri-City mental health and how this is like therapeutic gardening. I was wondering if you could speak to, first, if you do this, but how the therapy is tailored to individuals who seek this out. And so is it sort of a one size fits all type approach just based on the different types of groups that you showed on the schedule, broken down by language and demographic, like, or age or whatever? Or is there more like individual approach when somebody comes in and seeing where they're at? Like, if you could talk about that, I think that'd be helpful.
No, that's a really good question. So our groups really, it's a huge range. Someone may be a community member who just lives around the corner and knows we exist. Someone may be a grad student at ULV, and the other person in the group might be struggling with homelessness at the time. So it is an extremely diverse group of people with all different levels of gardening skills. And maybe someone's just dealing with a little bit of situational stress from their work, and someone else just experienced a family member passing away from COVID, right? All of our groups are broken down by age. Not ability, not what they're going through. And because we are a prevention and early intervention department, we're open to everyone. So we set a curriculum for each week, just like what the garden has to offer. Our curriculum is very much going to be based on the season. What's going on, what's coming out of the garden, what's going into the garden. But with the curriculum that's set, where we invite people to share at certain points, we always start with a check-in and we end with a checkout. That is the opportunity for people to really, and those can be directive or indirective. We might say, hey, can everybody just share something they plan on doing for self-care this week, or how their plants are doing, right? Or it may just be like, you know what, today, why don't you guys just speak your truth? What's on your heart? What's on your mind? whoever wants to go first, we invite you to share. And we may take 10 to 15 minutes going through that. As the clinical therapist, if someone's having a particularly bad day, or maybe safety concerns have come up, I'm going to need to leave the room and go call someone one-on-one, maybe assess further, because we invite everyone, all walks of life, all symptoms, diagnosis, no diagnosis, student, teacher, and everything in between, which can actually be, like Kira's mentioning, really beautiful. That biodiversity in the garden really mirrors the biodiversity of our groups. And it just ends up working, working in a natural garden where we're not using the pesticides and the herbicides and all that. It's harder, but it mirrors life more. Life is hard. You know what I mean? Life is can have a lot of ups and downs. So I hope that answers your questions. Based on our different roles, we may need to step out of the room. For the most part, they are very, very relaxing, calming, enjoyable groups, overwhelming positive response at the end of groups. People reporting, my stress level was a 9 out of 10 when I came in here today, and I'm walking out with a 6. And here's what I plan on doing to continue this coping skill, or continue to permeate this positive feeling throughout the day and throughout the week.
Right. And just to reiterate, so if you're a resident or affiliated, sort of broadly defined, with any of the 3 cities, Laverne, Pomona, Claremont, then these are free of charge.
Totally.
And do you need, if one, so after this, and we share this video with our network, if somebody checks out that calendar of events that you all have, we could include a link to that as well. Do they need to RSVP, or can they just walk in the door, or what's that look like?
Yes, back in the day, it was, again, different.
Of course,
yeah.
right.
If someone, literally, if someone just walked up to the gate and was like, what is this? We would use our best judgment, and more likely than not, just let them in and give them a garden tour right there on point, give them a schedule, and enroll them if they were interested. These days, we highly encourage a phone call. Also, because our garden, it's a space that the whole agency might use. There might be managers having a meeting out there one day. There might be someone, back in the day, having a one-on-one session, because maybe someone really didn't like the traditional therapy room of the little closed box with the walls all around you, and they needed to be in the garden to have their session. So we highly encourage phone contact first and foremost. And again, depending on your situation, maybe picking a group, maybe we're staying in touch so that you call, maybe a month later when another in-person group is showing up. But definitely encouraging the phone calls, because, you might see Kira working out there when she's doing her thing, but unfortunately, she's not going to be able to let you in and give you a tour right there on the spot, like we used to be able to.
Right. And do you have the classes, do those times, are they pretty, the virtual classes, I should say, or webinars or workshops, are those on a pretty regular schedule, or are those?
Yes, that is our permanent weekly schedule. That hasn't changed for months. And if anything, we add to it. We don't plan on taking away virtual groups once we roll out more and more in-person groups, because we've also found that this is a very viable option for people who, again, aren't fully ambulatory, maybe have transportation issues, maybe just feel like their safe place is, in their home. Of course, we'll still try to encourage pairing that with, like Andrea was saying, taking a seed kit home, at least learning how to get your hands a little dirty and learn how to grow your own food independently. And then the group pairs with that and kind of helps them move along. But absolutely, the schedule we showed earlier is like our permanent schedule.
Great. Okay, awesome. And then I saw Andrea put in the chat box, the phone number, and then the names of who to contact. And again, we could share that when we distribute the video to our network. Let's see. Do we have any other questions for anyone in the audience who'd like to put it in the chat box, or to ask of our?
I wanted to share our calendar really quick, or our schedule really quick.
Great.
And while Andrea is sharing that, I'm throwing, and again, Stuart, I defer to you on the directive here. I'm throwing an optional survey in. We send this to our workshops. We certainly, if you guys want to do this on your own time, to save the link, there are some scale questions, but at the end, there's open-ended questions. So if you want to get in touch, if you have follow-up questions, if you have an organization that you know that would enjoy partnering with us, that's your opportunity to just fill in the blank and speak your mind and let us know what you thought about the workshop today, or any other questions you may have. So for those of you that do have the time, save the link, it's in the chat, and we welcome you to complete that if you have the time in the future.
Great, and I can go ahead, Sarah, and put that in like the YouTube link as
Beautiful.
well, so people can do that after they
Thank you,
watch
Stuart.
the dialogue. Great. Do we have any other questions from anybody? Let me check the chat box here really quick. I think we're just approaching time, so it's kind of a perfect endpoint. Okay, I'll go in once, going twice, no questions. All right, well, we can go ahead and wrap it up then. So just like a very, very big thank you, Andrea and Sarah and Kira, for the three of you for taking the time on your Monday night. I know how busy we all are right now, but I think it's really important information that you're sharing. And like, this is one of those resources where maybe people learn about it and don't feel the need to use it, and then something happens, or they're down the road, it's something that they remember and something that they can use. And so I think the greater the opportunities we have to share it, the better. So hopefully this is not the last time we have a talk together, and hopefully we could do something in person in 2022. I feel like there's so many cool things that we could do to be together and share with our networks, and a lot of crossover there. So again, thank you all so much for coming tonight, and we will see you next Monday, hopefully at our next dialogue. Alrighty, take care, everybody.
Bye, Stuart. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, thank you, everybody. Let's see if I can reclaim host. All right, stop recording.